The Sphinx, an enigma wrapped in stone, forever guarding the secrets of the ages. The Chimera, a fiery beast with many heads, a terrifying spectacle of scales and flames. These two mythical creatures are both symbols of their respective cultures, each representing a unique blend of power, mystery, and terror. But how do they compare when pitted against one another? Which of these titans of myth would come out on top in a clash of titans? Let's dive deep into the world of legends and find out. Welcome back to the Night Forge here. We love exploring the wildest what-if questions in mythology. And today we're diving into a showdown between two iconic creatures, the mysterious Sphinx and the fearsome Chimera. Now, before we start our roaring rumble in the jungle, let me ask you, which of these mythological beasts do you think would win in a battle? Share your thoughts below. Your predictions could be spot on, who knows? But even if they're not, your guesses might lead to some fascinating insights. So don't hold back. Let your imagination run wild and cast your vote for the ultimate mythical showdown. To understand this epic battle, we need to take a closer look at each contender. Let's start with the enigmatic Sphinx. Originating from ancient Egypt, the Sphinx is more than just a creature of myth. It's a symbol of wisdom, power, and eternity, usually depicted with a lion's body and a human head. Occasionally female, it's most commonly portrayed as a male figure. In ancient Egyptian culture, the male form was often associated with divine power and kingship. This association can be seen in the famous Sphinx of Giza, which is believed to represent the pharaoh Khufu. The Sphinx's human head symbolizes intelligence and its ability to communicate, while its lion's body represents strength and its connection to the sun. The Sphinx is often depicted wearing a headdress known as a nenes, which was a traditional Egyptian head covering worn by pharaohs. This further emphasizes the link between the Sphinx and the divine kingship. The word Sphinx itself has Greek origins, stemming from the word sphingeon meaning to strangle. This alludes to the Sphinx's potential for great harm, a danger that must be overcome through riddles and wisdom. In Greek mythology, the Sphinx had wings, but in Egyptian mythology, it doesn't have wings. Perhaps because its role is to guard earthly domains rather than soar through the skies like the winged Chimera. Now let's turn our attention to the fearsome Chimera. In stark contrast to the Sphinx, the Chimera is a creature born of fire and fury. Hailing from Greek mythology, this terrifying beast is a composite of multiple animals, typically depicted as having the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and a tail that ends in a snake's head. This monstrous amalgamation breathes out flames, making it a truly fearsome sight to behold. The name Chimera itself comes from the Greek word chimera, meaning fantasy or imagination. This fantastical creature is a prime example of how the Greeks used mythology to express the wildest aspects of the human imagination. Each head of the Chimera represents a different aspect of its power, with some accounts even giving it up to 3 heads. This multitude of heads not only adds to its intimidating appearance, but also highlights its chaotic and unpredictable nature. But where did this fire-breathing monster come from? According to Hesiod's Theogony, a foundational text in Greek mythology, the Chimera was born from the union of 2 powerful monsters, Typhon, a giant with 100 heads, and Echidna, a monster with a woman's torso and a serpent's tail. This lineage alone gives the Chimera a sense of otherworldly menace, a being born from the darker steppes of primordial chaos. So now that we've met our 2 contenders, let's throw them into the arena of our imagination and see how this legendary battle might play out. To truly appreciate the outcome of this battle, we need to consider not just their physical attributes, but also their symbolic meanings. The Sphinx, with its human intellect and its connection to the sun, represents the power of knowledge and the pursuit of wisdom. The Chimera, on the other hand, embodies primal chaos, unrestrained power, and the untamed aspects of the natural world. In a conventional sense, the Chimera seems to have the upper hand. It's a creature of immense physical power, capable of breathing fire and possessing multiple heads that symbolize its chaotic and unpredictable nature. Its lion's head, its most prominent feature, signifies courage, strength, and ferocity. The goat's body represents agility, adaptability, and a connection to the wilderness. And its snake tail with its final head serves as a reminder of its venomous and potentially deadly nature. The Chimera is truly a force to be reckoned with, a terrifying blend of wild power and cunning. However, the Sphinx also has its own strengths. While it may not possess the raw physical power of the Chimera, it does have a human intellect. This means that the Sphinx can strategize, plan ahead, and use its environment to its advantage. Unlike the Chimera, whose behavior is likely driven by instinct and immediate reactions, the Sphinx can think several steps ahead, making it a formidable opponent. Additionally, the Sphinx's connection to the sun could provide it with a significant advantage. Depending on the time of day and location of the battle, the Sphinx could harness the sun's energy to either blind or burn its opponent, giving it a much-needed edge. If this were a battle of pure physical strength, the outcome would likely be swift and decisive, with the Chimera emerging victorious. However, the Sphinx's intelligence could level the playing field, turning the tide in its favor. The Sphinx's ability to strategize and use its surroundings could pose a serious threat to the Chimera, whose strength lies primarily in its raw, untamed power. Now let's talk about potential weaknesses. The Chimera's multiple heads could be a double-edged sword. While they add to its menacing appearance and symbolize its wild nature, they could also become a liability. If each head acts independently, it could lead to confusion or even infighting, which could distract the Chimera or even injure it. On the other hand, the Sphinx's greatest weakness might be its lack of physical prowess. Its reliance on intelligence and strategy could be exploited by a more agile and powerful opponent, like the Chimera. If the battle were to take place in an open field with no environmental factors to consider, the Chimera's speed and agility would make it difficult for the Sphinx to land a decisive blow. However, if the Sphinx could somehow manage to hold its own against the Chimera's physical attacks, its intellectual superiority could shine. The Sphinx could devise a strategy to exploit the Chimera's weaknesses, such as its potentially unhinged nature or its vulnerable underbelly, increasing the chances of a comeback. So who would win this epic clash of titans? It's really up to you to decide. There's no clear-cut answer, and that's what makes these mythological matchups so fascinating. Both the Sphinx and the Chimera have their strengths and weaknesses, and the outcome of their battle would depend on a myriad of factors. A direct confrontation in an open field would likely favor the Chimera due to its physical superiority. However, if the battle were to take place in a more complex environment, or if we were to factor in the creature's psychological profiles, the outcome could change. The Sphinx's intelligence and strategic thinking could allow it to exploit the Chimera's weaknesses, such as its potentially fractious nature or vulnerable underbelly. The Sphinx could devise a strategy to outsmart its opponent, potentially turning the tide in its favor. Similarly, the Chimera's raw power and aggression could be its undoing. If it were to attack the Sphinx directly without thinking strategically, it could leave itself wide open to a counterattack, allowing the Sphinx to gain the upper hand. Ultimately, the winner of this battle would be the one who could best capitalize on its strengths and exploit its opponent's weaknesses. In a battle of wits and wills, the Sphinx would likely prevail. Its intelligence, strategy, and understanding of its environment would prove invaluable. However, in a straightforward physical confrontation, the Chimera would emerge victorious with its overwhelming power and imposing presence. This mythological matchup is a great example of how different strengths can lead to different outcomes in a battle. It shows that it's not always the biggest or the strongest that wins, but also that intelligence and strategy can be just as powerful as brute force. And there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the epic battle between the Sphinx and the Chimera. These two legendary creatures may come from different mythologies, but they make for a compelling matchup that challenges us to think about the nature of strength, intelligence, and the balance of power. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think? If you were the Sphinx or the Chimera, how would you approach this battle? Share your thoughts, theories, and predictions below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more exciting mythological matchups and explorations of the unknown. Until next time, keep thinking outside the box, and remember, sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought with fists or claws, but with brains and a little bit of heart. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the realms of myth and legend. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep coming back for more.